Hey friend, Colin here from Sonic Scholar. I want to ask you an interesting question today. Are you as familiar with the CLI, that's command line interface, on your computer as you should be? If not, what makes you apprehensive about using the command line? For most people, it's usually a feeling of intimidation stemming from the unfamiliar, which then segues into an irrational fear of breaking something on the system. And sometimes we can just be plain oblivious to all the benefits that command line has to offer. So let me know in the comments which one of these most resonates with you. Today, it is my goal to help pull back the curtain on a couple concepts related to command line and your computer's operating system in general. And most importantly, I want to inspire you with an appreciation that 1, familiarity with the command line can help you develop mastery in troubleshooting, and 2, the productivity boosting benefits that command line tools have to offer. Let's discuss. Before we get into it, I want to hook you up with my free study blueprint that has 6 tips for writing excellent software. In software engineering, there are a bunch of things that go beyond learning the nuts and bolts of programming that are super important to learn and get educated on. We're talking about command line today, which is one of these 6 things, and I want you to check out the others so you can work smarter, not harder, and accelerate your coding journey. Click the link in the description and check that out, and we'll get into today's topic. This is going to be an overview of basic command line concepts. In the first part of this video, we'll cover some terminology and concepts at a really high level. Then in the second part, I'll get into some reasons that honing your skills with the command line is imperative to your craft as a programmer. Let's talk about some terms. Number 1, IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. An IDE is just a special text editor on steroids. It helps you write and test code, has extra tools like syntax highlighting, code completion, debugging, and lots more. A lot of beginner coders learn in the IDE, which has its pros and cons, as we'll discuss later. Here's some other terms that I want to get into to help demystify the command line and the operating system, starting with shell. A shell is simply the interface that lets you give instructions to the computer with text instead of clicking on things. Specifically, you interact with the shell by giving it a command, which brings us to the next term, command. A command is made up of 2 parts. First, a program to execute, and then optional extra information called arguments. And it's not like the kind you had at the dinner table when you were younger. You can think of the program as like a recipe card with instructions for the computer to follow, and arguments are ways that the recipe could be modified. Next term, process. When you execute a command, it spawns a process. So if the program is analogous to the recipe, then the process is like the actual dish. It's an instance of the recipe. A process is a running instance of the program. An interesting aspect to think about processes is that they can spawn other processes, sometimes referred to as children or child processes. Another term that you might hear thrown around is the kernel. The very first process that spawns is called the kernel. It's like the great-great-great-grandparent process to all the other processes on the system, and its job is to talk to all the hardware and make sure everything's running smoothly. You might consider it like the central brain of the operating system. Next, you want to know about environment variables. These are like variables in a program, except that they're global to the whole process. You can view and interact with environment variables from the shell, and a program can also interact with these. When a new process is spawned, it inherits all the environment variables that its parent has. And there's a special environment variable I want to talk about, which leads us to the next term, path variable. There's no magic when you run a command in a shell. To run a command, the computer needs to understand where the program is located so it can spawn you a new process. The path variable is a list of directories, usually separated by a semicolon. And when you enter a command, the shell will literally just start at the beginning and search all the directories for the name of that program and run the first one it finds. So here I'm running the ping command against Google servers. How does it know to run the ping program? Well, if we look at the path variable, we could see this directory here. And if I open a file explorer and peek inside, lo and behold, I can see the ping program right here. All right, that was a super quick overview of some of the most important terms related to the command line. There are lots of other things we could get into, but these are core concepts that will be an amazing start at demystifying the literal black box of the world of command line. All right, now for part 2. For the rest of our time, I want to transition a little and get a little bit more philosophical and tell you 2 key reasons that all this stuff matters. First, knowing these things will give you a new lens to see the computer world through, improving your critical thinking and troubleshooting skills. And second, command line skills will unlock an entire warehouse of tools to augment your productivity and the developer experience in an extremely positive direction. So let's start with that first reason and talk about troubleshooting. The command line environment is analogous to like a workbench in a garage. It serves as the framework and the foundation from which we create and troubleshoot. So having a better understanding of these things will help you build critical troubleshooting skills that are crucial to this craft. In the process of building an app, there are several links in the chain that go from having source code in plain text to actually running a compiled program. Familiarity with the CLI will open that black box a little bit more and help you understand what those links are. The more of those links that you understand, the better you'll be at identifying the busted link in the chain and troubleshooting a solution. By the way, this idea of effective problem isolation and troubleshooting is a pillar that's crucial in every field of engineering. Software engineering is no exception. So when we're in our IDEs, we need to be able to discern all kinds of errors like compilation, pre-post build events, third-party programs, file permissions, file locking issues, network errors, and more. Often the IDE calls command line programs in the background anyway as part of its normal operation. So understanding the CLI is crucial to mastering the tools in the IDE that you use. Learn the foundation of command line environment, and you'll take your troubleshooting skills to the next level. Now let's talk reason number 2, enhanced developer experience. These days, the IDE does so much for you. It's an incredibly efficient tool that has greatly enriched the experience of developers, but there are still limitations. To illustrate this, I want to share a quote from one of my favorite books, The Pragmatic Programmer by Andy Hunt and Dave Thomas. A benefit of GUIs, that's graphical user interface as opposed to command line interface, is WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. The disadvantage is WYSIAG. What you see is all you get. The authors go on to describe how if an IDE is missing a particular feature, there's really nothing you can do about it. But knowing your way around the command shell is a great way to do something that you can't do with a point and click in the IDE. Here are some examples of how command line might make your life easier. Create a build script that compiles all your code, runs your tests, packages up binaries, and sends a status email without needing to have an IDE open. Next, open the terminal window from right inside the IDE to use something like Git more efficiently. Now, the IDE will have some level of Git integration, but a little familiarity with the command line functions might help you to accomplish the same tasks faster than in the IDE. And then you'll have the added bonus of being able to efficiently use those commands no matter what IDE you're in. Side note, I have a basic tutorial on command line Git, so you can watch that here if you're interested. Last example, programs themselves can spawn child processes or launch other programs with command line arguments. So maybe your program can leverage other programs to perform specific tasks or operations. This could be data processing, network communication, file management. You're integrating these into your program to make it more efficient. The point here is simple. Learn command line and some basic scripting, and you'll have a whole new framework to creatively solve problems outside of the IDE as well. This will make the time that you do spend in the IDE a lot more enjoyable and more productive. All right, here we are for today. We talked about a couple key terms: IDE, shell, kernel, commands, programs and arguments, processes, environment, variables, and all this stuff. I'd love to go deeper on these in future videos, so let me know in the comments if that would be helpful. I hope what we covered today at a high level has helped clear things up a little bit more than they used to be, and that you feel inspired to use the command line as part of your normal rhythms in software engineering so that you can be a master troubleshooter and productive app builder. Remember to go get that 6 tips for excellent software blueprint guide. It's free and the link is in the description, or you can head to www.sonicscholar.com/6tips. Again, let me know what's frustrating or scary about the command line in the comments, and I'll see if I can shed some more light on that in the future. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe button if you find content like this helpful, and I'll see you in another video soon.